Hello and welcome. My name is Katie, my pronouns are she, her, and I am from Lush Cosmetics. And we're here today to talk about the Lush approach to skincare and to do some myth busting. So I've got two experts in their fields with me here today. We've got Helen Ambrosen, who's one of the Lush co-founders. Helen is an expert formulator. You've worked extensively on skincare, especially as a category within Lush, and has developed techniques of formulating with little or no preservatives across many ranges. And you've been formulating Suncare for decades also.
Absolutely, yes.
Since before Lush was even Lush.
Yeah, indeed.
And then we've also got with us today Professor Brian Diffey. So Brian is a professor of photobiology in dermatological sciences at the University of Newcastle here in the UK. Brian is author of numerous publications, including the book Sun Protection, A Risk Management Approach. Brian's career has been in the NHS, and he's won awards for his research and contributions to Suncare, particularly extensive work on measuring personal sun exposure and ways to minimize excessive exposure. So you're really well placed to be helping us with some of these myths today. And Brian's work has been incredibly influential for the Lush founders for many years.
Yes, and indeed, I first met Brian 35 years ago, and Brian's just joking, we both look exactly the same. When in the days of cosmetics ago, we'd developed and launched some sunscreens, and I proudly went to Newcastle University to visit Brian because we knew that Brian represented public health, and we wanted to show him the work that we'd been doing. And Brian, you said, well, why would you want to get into that area? It seems really quite difficult. But I felt that we had something to contribute, so we've been working ever since. But I haven't seen you for all that time, so it's great to see you here today.
Thank you.
Thank you
nice
for coming.
To come back. Thank you.
Thank you. So there is so much information online and on social media telling us how we can best protect our skin from the consequences of the sun and the consequences of not protecting our skin. We wanted to get together today to have some of those conversations and to understand what's fact and what's myth. Brian, first off, why do you think there is so much misinformation around this topic out there?
Well, when we're thinking about protecting ourselves from the sun, it's really a two-stage process. The first stage is we have to think about how much sun exposure are we actually getting? And to help us here, we turn to physics and to climatology. Then having assessed the level of our exposure, we then we ask ourselves, what harm is this level of exposure likely to do to our skin? And here we need advice from people like dermatologists and from biologists. The levels that we're getting are crucially important because the same advice doesn't apply on a dark winter's day that it might do on a bright sunny day. And so I think the mistake that's often made is that journalists approach the wrong type of expert. And the wrong type of expert may be asked questions outside their expertise, but nevertheless feel obliged to give an answer. And that, I think, is why we get some myths coming in, which has led to what I term misguided advocacy.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come and spend time with us today, because I think this context that you just described is missing from a lot of the conversations out on social media and out in the world. So that's what we're going to try and address today. I've got a few true or false statements, so I'm going to be guessing whether I think it's fact or myth, and then you're going to be correcting me or giving a little bit more information or agreeing with me. I hope. So you'll be giving us a little bit more information and context behind why that is the case. Are we ready? So the first one is you should wear sunscreen all year round to protect your skin from photo-aging. I hear this a lot, so is it a fact?
Well, I'm afraid there, Katie, no, it's not a fact. It's really a myth. Here in the UK, and I'll speak first of all about the situation in the UK, that's where I live, there is no need for sun protection over the full winter months. And when I say no need, I mean there's no need for recreational sunscreen or using day care products like moisturisers, which incorporate UV filters, or what people often refer to as SPF. So the answer is no, don't use sunscreens over the winter. So if you live, for example, in Florida, a latitude of say less than 30 degrees north, the UK, by the way, is between 50 to 60 degrees north, say 30 degrees north, then the UV levels are sufficiently strong all the year round that if you're needing to spend time outside in, say, January or February or December in Florida, then it may be a sensible idea to use sunscreen. But certainly if you're in the UK and wanting to spend time outside in December or January, using sunscreens is of no benefit, and all it carries with it is a possible risk of side effects.
So for Lush, that was really great direction in terms of how we would sort of describe our skincare. So we're not going to mix, as it were, our sun care products with our skincare products.
Maybe I should just add that there may be occasions during the winter when you do want to buy a sunscreen. For example, if you're going off on a sunny holiday to the Caribbean, or you're going skiing at high altitude, say in the Alps, because on fresh snow, certainly about 80% of the UV reaching the ground will be reflected back up again. And so not only do you need to think about protecting your skin when you're skiing, but also your eyes as well, because your eyes, as well as your skin, are the vulnerable organ when it comes to sun exposure.
Yep. So we're taking a climate-appropriate
approach to sun care.
Excellent. So that was a myth. Second myth to burst: UVA ages, UVB burns. Is it true?
It's very simplistic, and it's not really true. All wavelengths of UV throughout the whole UV spectrum contribute both to aging and to burning, and also to skin cancer. It's really unhelpful to think of somehow UVB and UVA as being separate entities and somehow causing different effects of their skin. They're simply part of one continuous spectrum, and all wavelengths, whether they lie within the UVB or the UVA, will contribute to a greater or lesser extent to all of the biological effects we see in our skin, which we associate with sun exposure.
Mm-hmm. So, oversimplified, we should be treating them as one.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, next. Using once a day sunscreen means you don't need to reapply. That sounds like a myth.
You're right. It is a myth. There's nothing wrong with sunscreens per se that are marketed as all-day sunscreens. The problem there is that if you don't apply them uniformly over the whole of your exposed skin, you may miss bits. So you could be out in the sun for several hours with bits of your skin unprotected. Even though the sunscreen you've used may be binding well to where you put it on, you'll have unprotected bits of skin. So my advice is always to apply a second coat of sunscreen early into your sun exposure period, because there not only do you hopefully cover up bits you might have missed the first time, but also you build up a thicker layer of product.
Okay, UVA levels remain constant no matter what time of day or year. That I know is a myth.
You're right, it is a myth. And yet, we read this so often in magazines. People write things like UVA remains constant throughout the day and all year round. Well, just take a look at the graphic now in front of you. This shows the UVA which has been measured on a typical summer and winter day in southern England. And we've got the UVA intensity on the vertical axis and the time of day on the horizontal axis. Now what you see for both winter and summer is that the UVA increases during the morning. It reaches its peak around solar noon and then declines again in the afternoon until sunset. Exactly the same in winter. The only difference is that in winter, the amplitude is much less.
Thank you. And this obviously is the context that helps us make good decisions about what we're doing with our sun care.
Absolutely.
Right, okay, this one's a juicy one. If you work indoors, you should still wear an SPF. Myth?
It is a myth. The reason why this has arisen is that the UVA rays from sunlight will, to some extent, penetrate glass. And so because of that, people have been fooled into thinking, well, they come through glass, or a fair part of them do, so you need to wear sunscreen indoors. What people often don't realise is that the design of a building is such that very little UVA actually gets into the building. When we're outside, we're exposed to UV from both the sun and the sky. And if, for example, the sun is moved around the side of the building, so there's no direct sunlight coming in the building, you'll get very little. And even if the sun is shining right through the window, even then, in the middle of a room, you'll get really very low levels of UV or UVA. So the upshot of all of this is there really is no need whatsoever to wear a sunscreen indoors if you're an office worker. The only exception may be if you perhaps work in horticulture and you're working in a greenhouse all day long where you've got a glass roof as well as glass walls. There may be a case then for wearing sunscreen indoors. Otherwise, a waste of time. You're not doing your skin any good. Again, you're just subjecting yourself to possible side effects, and you're washing sunscreen off into the environment, which again is doing, the ocean's no good.
And this is this whole point of wearing sunscreens when you really need to use them.
Absolutely, yeah. Sunscreens have a very valuable role to play in public health, alongside shade and clothing, but there really is no need to wear sunscreens when your exposure to the sun's UV rays is so low that it's of no biological consequence.
So, another question we have. You only need to protect your skin from the sun when it's hot. I think myth.
You're right, Katie, it is a myth. The UV rays from the sun pass fairly easily through clouds. So if the sun is high in the sky, you can still get sunburnt through clouds. Clouds basically is a collection of water vapor. Now the water in clouds will absorb the heat rays or the infrared rays from the sun. So when a cloud passes in front of the sun, you'll feel cool, but it's really making little difference to the UVA, to the UV strength coming through. So it's the height of the sun in the sky which is the main factor determining your risk of sunburn, not how hot it is.
Thank you. Okay, we got a couple more. So you should protect the skin on your face with a higher SPF than on your body.
Yeah, that's a myth. I mean, the skin on your body is just as sensitive to burning as the skin on your face, and also just as likely to develop, particularly melanoma, the serious form of skin cancer. In fact, melanomas are much more common on the trunk of your body than on your face. So my advice is if you're in a situation where there's a need to protect yourself with sunscreens, then just use an SPF 30 product that is pleasurable to use, that you apply generously, spread nicely over your skin, and you use again. There's no real need to put one SPF on your face and another SPF on your body.
Mm-hmm. I've got one more. So, not having enough sun is detrimental to our health. That's a fact.
Well, that is a fact. Yep. All of us need some sunshine to make vitamin D in our skin, which is necessary for healthy bones. Now, we get most of our vitamin D needs from the sun. Our diet contributes roughly about 10% of our body's vitamin D needs. Obviously, it varies a little bit depending on how much oily fish you eat and so on. But it's still a very small fraction of our daily needs. So we do need some sun exposure. Now, trying to be prescriptive about how much sun exposure you need is almost impossible. It depends upon what's the season, what's the time of day you're going outside, how much clothing you're wearing, because the more skin you have exposed, the more vitamin D you make. What's your posture? Are you upright or are you lying flat? What's your immediate environment like? Do you get shade from buildings and trees nearby, or are you out in the countryside? And so really to try to give advice about you need to be in the sun for 10 minutes a day, whatever it might be, is really not very helpful. The reality of the situation is that most people in this country, just going about their normal day-to-day duties, will get enough sunlight to give them sufficient vitamin D. So don't worry too much about vitamin D, just enjoy the sun, but protect yourself when it's necessary.
Right, excellent. Thank you so much. I've certainly learned a lot from those quick-fire questions, and I hope you have too. Let us know what you thought in the comments. And just a massive thank you to Brian and Helen for sharing your expertise today. Thank you.